one second. We've come into the brain now.
Yeah.
And you said brain is not differentiating. So first of all, very interesting. You brains come in, and you just gave your example, Brenda. But left side, this, and your neck couldn't move. How is the brain decided that your neck couldn't move? So what's the role of the brain here? This is very interesting. Tell us more.
So basically, brain is like a boss in the body. It controls everything, what you do, what you think, what you feel. And pain is just not a sensation. It's a full-blown brain experience, and it involves different parts of brain and their responses. So what we will do is we'll explain you a little bit more about the parts of the brain so that you understand exactly the chemistry of your pain that you undergo. So the first part of the brain that we want to discuss is the amygdala. Amygdala is part of the brain, and it is basically the alarm system. And it is super important because it helps us to helps for us to stay safe. Like if you hear a loud noise or if you undergo through a scary experience, you will either scream or jump. And that's exactly where your amygdala is in action. So it helps you to get ready to run away in order to protect you. So, and also what amygdala does is it also helps to imprint these scary experiences into our memory. So that, in future, if you undergo any such experience, you know how to behave, how to react to such scary experiences. So this is how it is a protection mechanism that the body develops. So we had a client actually who had a very bad car accident on the highway. And after he recovered, he could not drive the car again. Why? Because the amygdala already processed it as a scary event and told him if you do it again, the same process can happen. So trying to protect him, but he wants to drive the car. So he came to us for to help him to drive back again. And so we used B&C Miracle Method, and we worked on clearing the traumatic experience of the accident. We also worked on his fear of driving. We also tapped into his body, and we found that there were some trapped emotions of terror, shock, helplessness, fear. So we cleared all these things. And after that, he was able to drive the car, but on the inner sides of the city and not on the highway. Then he took another session from us. This time we worked on building up his confidence, self-confidence to drive on the highway. And after that, the history got rewritten, or should I say the amygdala got rewritten. And that is what we did. We removed the fear and the alarm setting that of driving the car on the highway. So the statements that usually get blocked in amygdala are, I'm never safe. I'm not good enough. I can't do anything right. I can't handle this. I always mess up, and and so many other such statements.
The second part we would like to talk about is the hippocampus, and this is the map maker or the memory keeper. So it helps you to understand and basically remember where things happened, when things happened, and all the details like what you saw, what you heard, and even what you smelled at that time. We may have forgotten the whole episode or the experience or whatever happened, but the hippocampus has all the context stored. So when we come across a similar event or a similar set of scenario, then it will kind of ping you and say, oh yeah, okay, you've been through this has happened, and you will then, it'll give you a flood of all the information, whatever happened. Now, obviously, if it's the plus and positive, then we're, hey, good. But what happens when it also, because the brain is not, or the hippocampus is not going to say, oh, only positive I'm going to record, or only, it records every single movement of yours and every single experience. And so what happens is when the negative comes up. So we had a client and he had a painful breakup, and he thought he'd got over it. It was like 15 years ago. And he thought he got over it and he'd done with it and sorted it out. But then suddenly it was like maybe a few months ago, he started talking to his friend, and his friend told him, you know what, I got divorced, but I'm really shocked about why I got divorced, because we weren't fighting, we were having the nice relationship, we were, you know, talking nicely, and everything was going really, really good. And then the client said, suddenly hearing that, I remembered my relationship and how that even I had the same scenario. We were both not fighting, although they were fighting probably cats and dogs before. Suddenly they were not fighting. And then he made the conclusion that, oh, she'd already decided to leave me. And so she wasn't fighting with me. And then all the flood of, you know, depression, the sadness, the heartache, the heartbreak, all resurfaced because just by a simple random person's information, you can say, you know. And so then what we did is we actually, you know, as you know, the BNC Miracle Method is a one pointed focus. So we clear what the client is basically going through or what you are facing. So by clearing and working on the trauma or the reinstatement of the negative part, we actually worked on that, and then he was able to let go again and start, you know, releasing all that was, you know, everything that got triggered. The statements that get stuck in the amygdala on the negative parts, obviously there are positives as well, and we're basically talking about negative. I'm always sick or fighting during important events. And actually, you know, when we were putting this call together, and we, you know, we research and we put the call together, and it was so funny. I thought, weird, this statement, I always fight. And I thought I always fight on important events. And you won't believe, this has always been my pattern. Christmas would come, I would have big fights. My birthday would come, I would have big fights prior to this. And I was like, oh my God, I hate Christmas. I hate birthdays. And then I realized, oh my God, this is like, you know, so somewhere where there was an event where I fought or I got upset, and then that actually stayed. And then obviously I cleared. So this was like about 5 years. Then I realized 5 years ago, like it was like on my 50th birthday, I was having a big party, and Charu and me were, you know, having this I was this, and Charu was like, I'll do this and this. And you won't believe we were fighting over plates. I want this color. No, I want this color. We'll have this outside. I'll have this outside. And I'm like, oh my God, my birthday is going to get so bad. It's just like all the others. So then I like this was then I cleared it, and then I realized, oh, this is me. And so that's one of these statements. And then no matter how hard I study, how hard I work on my relationship, on my studies, on my work, on my job, I always do poorly, or things never work out for me.
The third part of brain that we want to talk about is the basal ganglia. It's the mood swing machine of our brain. It tells us how to react. Should I stay courageous and calm, or should I get scared and experience anxiety and nervousness? It is also our habit former, our motivation, and our drive. The statements that get logged in basal ganglia are, I'm scared, I'm too tense, I know it isn't going to work out. We'll talk a little bit more in detail on our next call about it on the 27th. And the next part of the brain that we want to quickly touch upon today is the fourth part, which is called the limbic system. This is the emotional drama hub. Yes, the emotional drama hub. It decides when you get up whether you will have a fun day or you are going to feel sad on that day. It reminds you of the events of how happy you were, the time when you had a best friend visiting you, or it will remind you of when you lost your favorite toy when you were young and you felt so sad and angry about it. So it's basically stores highly emotional stuff. It can be positive, it can be negative. And the statements that get logged in limbic system are, all I can remember is the bedtime, I'm too tired, I don't want to hear you that you are sorry because you meant to hurt me, and so on. And we will talk again on the next call about the limbic system.
And then the fifth part that we want to talk about is the prefrontal cortex, and this is the boss. I know Charu said that the brain is the boss, but then actually this is the boss because the prefrontal cortex basically makes good decisions. It helps you to focus, it helps you to plan, it helps you to problem solve, and it mainly helps you to talk about your friends nicely. And I sometimes feel my prefrontal cortex doesn't work properly because me and Charu continuously argue. I want that. No, you want that. I want that. I want. I'm like, oh my God, I got to sort my prefrontal cortex out. So basically, let's say you're having a disagreement with your spouse or somebody, and if your prefrontal cortex functions properly, then you will give a very sweet and nice answer, and then the disagreement, or let's say the angst in that relationship, gets diffused. But if your prefrontal cortex is blocked and not working, you'll be rude, you'll be abrupt, you'll be brash, and then you will fight, and it will basically you'll have more let's say drama. So this basically comes from so attention seeking. You have also ADD, poor time management, poor judgment. All of this, the prefrontal cortex, when it doesn't work, brings all of this. And I think I also have to work on my prefrontal cortex because Charu says I'm always late.
Yeah, true.
And the sixth part of the brain is we talk about the anterior cingulate cortex, and this is the flexibility. And so it's like I'm flexible. I can change my plans. So if I am planned to go for let's say a dinner and the dinner gets cancelled, I can say, oh sure, let's stay at home. And it helps us to understand other people's emotions. So when basically someone's sad, someone's lost their loved one, we basically cry, we basically feel that in us. And it helps us to understand other people's suffering. And so the anterior cingulate cortex is the one that is mainly connected to the emotional and the physical pain. And when this is not functioning properly, we don't go from our hurts, our past hurts. We are argumentative, we have OCD, we have chronic pain because this is that pain hub center. We have addictive behaviors like drug, alcohol, smoking, food, whatever you name it. And the statements that got locked up here are, you hurt me years ago, so pass. It'll never be the same. So even though you want to go forward, I'm not going. It's your fault. And as Charu said, that we'll be talking all about these over our next calls, which are on the 27th of Feb and the 1st of March. So Charu, given all this mind-blowing information about the brain, have you actually given any thought about what your brain does for you?
Brenda, I'm just glad I have one.
Yeah, me too. I'm also actually very glad that I actually have one.
So basically, your brain is involved in everything you do. Even when you joke and smile, how you think, how you feel, how you act, how you get along with other people. The brain is the organ behind your intelligence, your character, your personality, and every single decision that you take.
And Neela, I'd like to bring in, we did some research and we found from 400 BC, Hippocrates wrote about the brain. And this is what he said, and quoting, and men ought to know that from the brain, and from the brain only, arise our pleasures, our joy, our laughter, as well as our sorrow, our pain, our despondency, and tears. So basically what it says is that our brain decides whether we should get married, whether we should get divorced, because obviously it stores all the memories. Whether, your brain manages your money, your brain decides if you're successful, your brain pushes you away from the table telling you you're full, or gives you permission to eat more. And so when your brain works right, you work right, you are healthier, you are happier, you are wealthier, you are successful. And when your brain is troubled, you basically are, you are most likely to have more issues in life. You become sadder, you become sicker, you become poor, and you become less motivated.